As I've already said many times on this channel, I don't put a lot of stock into test screening talk for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason being, by the time we see the movie, it's entirely possible it's been reworked into something completely different, making test screening results right now completely useless. That being said, I think there is something to be said, if these rumors are in fact true, about the amount of changes happening behind the scenes for this particular movie that is scheduled to release in a little over a month. I do think it's very telling how certain people are trying to downplay all of this, which I think not only gives some credibility to these rumors, but it also says something about the current state of filmmaking overall. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So again, today we have to take these rumors with a massive grain of salt, especially for a movie like this, where we hear something new about it almost every day, and it is difficult to figure out what to believe and what not to believe.
If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
But I think the fact that we have some DCU news bot accounts acknowledging these rumors, instead of trying to debunk them, says that there might be something going on here. So the World of Real put out an article yesterday titled "Superman Faced Major Changes After Test Screening, Reshoots, Less Humor, Shorter Runtime, New Editor, and Composer." The article says, sources close to the production say the film received a mixed reception at an earlier test screening, triggering a cascade of changes. Gunn's original cut apparently leaned heavier on humor, something execs weren't entirely sold on. In response, several comedic beats were cut, trimming down both tone and runtime.
I don't believe it!
Now I'm going to stop right there and point out that if these rumors are true at all, it does kind of confirm all of the criticisms people have had about this movie and about James Gunn's filmmaking style overall. I've said many times that I don't feel like James Gunn's style meshes with a character like Superman, or a lot of the characters in DC for that matter. And I also do not think that he is a versatile enough filmmaker to be able to adapt when necessary. Now, a lot of people scoff at that, as if James Gunn is God's gift to the comic book movie genre. But it sounds like WB executives weren't too keen on James Gunn bringing his juvenile form of humor to Superman either. Now, I would respond to that and say, you get what you pay for. Why would you expect anything else from James Gunn? But that's why this rumor is a little bit hard for me to believe personally, because isn't this exactly what you hired him for? Didn't you bring him in to lighten things up and apply some of that MCU energy to whatever you're doing with DC? But now that he has the job and he does what he normally does, you're gonna act surprised by it? I'm just not buying it.
Get what you deserve!
I do believe that WB was fully on board, at least initially, with whatever James Gunn was doing. This to me feels like, again, another instance of WB being reactionary, getting cold feet, and surprise, surprise, meddling in the creative process. If we're going to call it out when they do it to one creative, we have to call it out when they do it to all creatives. If this is true at all, it all but confirms that WB as a studio has been and will always be DC's biggest obstacle to overcome. If this is true at all, it would confirm that James Gunn is not this powerhouse creative mind that everyone tries to make him out to be. In fact, he's more like a hired hand. Does this sound like a situation where we are going to get a film that is based purely on one creator's vision? Or does it feel like just another filmmaking by committee studio project?
Something very familiar about all this.
Honestly, I'd rather James Gunn make the movie he wants to make at this point, whether it's cringe or not, and put it out and have it live or die on its own merits. Changing things now, or somewhat recently, is only going to make the film feel more disjointed and thrown together. And if you don't believe me, just look at any MCU project over the last several years, because this is the exact same method that they use when making films as well. This notion that some people are running with, that this is the only way to make movies now, is the most ass-backwards, corporate apologist way of looking at things. Even if it is how films are made now, specifically comic book movies, that doesn't make it right. And we have numerous examples of panicky reshoots re-edits, and chopping up a film beyond recognition, not actually fixing the problem. I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is not the most effective way of telling cohesive stories. The most effective way to do that is to hire a competent creative mind and get the f*** out of their way.
That makes sense.
Does it sound like WB is doing that? Does it sound like WB has learned it all from their past mistakes? James Gunn could be finding out what a lot of other filmmakers already know who have worked with WB before, and I just don't think he is a competent enough storyteller to overcome it. More intriguingly, one of the film's editors was quietly removed mid-process, leading to a slight reworking of the film's structure. This was somewhat of a tweak and signaled a slight shift in how the story was being presented. Some key sequences were shuffled, and minor scenes were added during reshoots. Now, to be fair, if this editor does in fact exist, he or she could have left this project for any number of reasons. It could have actually been completely unrelated to their work on the film itself. But if they were let go as a way of making changes during the filmmaking process in hopes of helping the film, that person is starting to sound like the fall guy, a scapegoat. We all know that in almost any industry, when hits the fan, the company will always look for someone to take the blame for it. And that very well could have been this nameless, faceless editor when they were getting less than favorable responses to their film. Or maybe this editor was in fact really bad at their job. I guess we'll never know.
Well, the world's a twisted place.
Here's what I think happened if in fact this story is true. I think WB heard a lot of the praise that this film was getting, but I think they heard a lot of the criticisms as well. And I know that James Gunn heard a lot of the criticisms, being the chronically online person that he is. And I think all of this could be happening as a way of WB and James Gunn kind of covering their tracks, and basically saying to their biggest critics, see, we aren't making the movie that you think we are making. When in fact, they were most definitely making the exact movie that we all thought they were making. I think a lot of the criticisms towards this movie and towards James Gunn hit very close to home. And I think they are scrambling to rework this into something that has the appearance of being a bit more mature and at least more consistent with how some people think of the character of Superman. Nobody in their right mind looks at Superman as a comedic character, especially James Gunn's kind of humor. I think that a lot of the comedy that could have potentially been removed from this film disrupted the overall tone of the film, which is something that has also been a reoccurring theme in past James Gunn projects. My only question is there enough material to piece together a competent movie without all of that stuff? I am skeptical. Now, obviously the reshoots could have been used to combat that, but it just feels like we are a little bit too far along at this point to try to be overhauling this project. That's why I say the problems at WB and DC actually run a lot deeper than some people realize. They have issues from the conceptual level on. And if these rumors are true, it all but confirms what has been confirmed many times before.
Y'all be cool. Nah.